It's a matter of life and death. Gender affirming care is so important that I want those policymakers to understand that it really is about life and death.
It's life-saving. It really is. It's life-saving. And I could teach about it, but actually living it is such a different experience, you know?
If it's cut for trans people, you better cut it for cis people too. Like, let's just make this fair.
The so-called gender-affirming care is anything but affirming and caring, and the language matters.
As President Donald Trump takes office, the fight for access to gender-affirming care continues, and countless transgender lives hang in the balance. Tristan, Anne, and others you will soon meet plea to protect policies that save lives, because it's more than politics. It's life and death.
It felt like there was a huge block in front of me until I had gender-affirming care. And then the block it feels like it was removed.
Before I started testosterone, it didn't feel like my future. It felt like someone else's. Kind of almost 2.5 years on testosterone. It's completely changed. Like, I look in the mirror and I see me.
On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. Puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this?
Members of Congress are helping to promote a culture of discrimination that has increased violence against trans kids and their parents. I must object to this callous and reckless use of this committee's time. And with that, I yield back.
Our nation has seen a wave of anti-LGBTQ bills. During this year's Conservative Political Action Conference, one speaker was applauded when he declared, and I quote, "Transgenderism must be eradicated
from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level."
It's furthering anti-trans bias just because they exist. It's such an attack on the trans community. I've heard people call this a soft genocide, and they're using that phrase for a reason. Because if we do not have the capacity to advocate for wider access to gender-affirming care, we are going to see an increase in suicide.
Suicide and depression. I know multiple teenagers who cannot get gender-affirming care. It's really sad.
So, I'm going to speak the truth here plainly, and I think the vast majority of the American people understand and agree with what I'm going to say. This so-called gender-affirming care is anything but affirming and caring, and the language matters.
I remember one time, this kind of sounds weird, but one time I shaved, and like 5 days later I was like, oh, like I really need to shave again. And I was like, it's less than a week, like, and I have to shave, like,
That gender is somehow fluid, that sex can be surgically altered, that there are no lasting consequences of all this madness as a result of the sex change procedures.
Wow. It is so deep and meaningful that you just can't help see it, like, in their eyes and in their smile and in their posture.
Mental health therapist Anne discusses her experiences working with transgender clients and the impacts gender-affirming care has, furthering her argument on the importance of these laws.
That misconception of, like, trans folks are going to be unsafe to others. That's the part that they have wrong.
Like, if we could just expect humans to be cared for simply by being humans rather than by being cisgender humans, right? Because cis folks have had access to gender-affirming care for a really long time. We just haven't called it that, you know? I want that to be available for everybody, just like I want good water to be available for everybody.
I mean, I think gender-affirming care is pretty essential for people who need gender-affirming care across the board. I'm always surprised by how many cis people have gender-affirming care, and it's not even questioned. You know, if if I wanted breast implants tomorrow, no one would care. And it's like, well, that would be affirming my gender if I felt like I needed that. But like, if I need my breasts taken off of me, then I might have to go through a procedure of like psychiatric evaluation. Well, why isn't there a psychiatric evaluation for either?
Julia states in her final remarks that trans people are not a political pawn, and expresses that if gender-affirming care is taken away, then so is our livelihood.
I think we need to come back to understanding that these are basic human rights. Like, this is a basic human experience. You can deny it all you want, but people are actually really having it right now. You can't deny that, actually. There's evidence. I'm here right in front of you saying that this is my experience.